Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Philosophy on Tap, where we explore the deepest secrets of the universe over beers in the park. This is F's. I used to hate this beer because when I was in Turkey for the first time a good few years ago, this was the only beer they used to sell. And whenever you tried to drink a good few of them, I used to swell up like a poison pup because of all the yeast in it. But if you're only having one, it's grand. It's actually very good for after training because of the yeast in it. I talked about this before in previous videos, that a yeast beer is very good after training because the effect that yeast has on an organic compound. But as I say, I've talked about that in other videos. This is philosophy, not training. So this is F's, as I say. When you're only having one, it's not a problem. As I say, contrary to the popular opinion, I'm able to have one and stop, as I am now. I want to talk this morning about my recent intervention. What was different from my recent intervention, as opposed to all interventions I've had before, was they started with, I have a problem. Previous interventions, they used to start with, you have a problem, to which I used to retort, the only person I see with a problem is you. But when they start with, I have a problem, having already established that, I'm all ears. If somebody says to me, I have a problem, I'm more than willing to listen. So I was all ears. I'm willing to hear what they had to say. I don't know if you ever saw Father Ted. It's an Irish sitcom that where they ridicule the Catholic Church, because the fastest way to remove anybody from power is ridicule. That's why they used to have all the naked statues of Trump everywhere and spitting image. I don't know if you remember spitting image, but if you ridicule someone, nobody takes them seriously. Everybody just laughs at them. So it's the fastest way to remove someone from power. And Father Ted was very effective in this regard. But in Father Ted, it was about an Irish Catholic priest, and he used to have this housekeeper called Mrs. Doyle. And Mrs. Doyle used to say, will you have a cup of tea? Anyone who came into the house, will you have a cup of tea? And they say, no, I won't have tea. No, I won't have tea. And she said, you will, you'll have a cup of tea. I know, I won't have tea. She said, you will. Go on, you'll have tea. As she poured out the tea. This is Irish culture. And that's why we have what's called an Irish exit. An Irish exit is where you don't say I'm going home, because everybody say, oh no, sit down, you'll have one more, you'll have one for the road, have one more beer. This is Irish culture. And that's why you say, instead of saying I'm going home, you say I'm going for a piss, and you go for a piss and you don't come back. That's to mitigate this. But you have to be able to see things from other people's perspective. And I can appreciate how people from other cultures would find this a real pain in the ass. I've thought about this, and I can fully understand how terrible it must be to have someone insist you'll have a drink or you'll come out for a smoke. Have another drink or come out for a smoke. It must be fucking terrible. But yeah. So I said, yes, okay, I'm taking this on board. I did, and I did take this on board. And I said to them, I'll think about this. I will think about this. And what else then? Then she said to me, that she's 5 years working with people like me. I said, pardon? People like me. This is the first professional intervention that I had. Yeah. So she said to me, have you any underlying problems? That you're drinking, is any issues? I said, no, I don't have any issues, but I can fully understand where she's coming from, because I used to have underlying issues. I used to take speed in order as a coping mechanism for chronic anxiety that I used to have, chronic anxiety and stress and depression. I used to take drugs and in order to as a coping mechanism. But I was very aware that I had underlying problems, and I did study to address these problems. I studied cognitive behavioural therapy, Hinduism, Buddhism and philosophy in order to address these issues, and found philosophy to be the most effective. I at the time I used to have a page called the Psychedelic Therapist, and when I used to teach the videos on I used to teach cognitive behavioral therapy on the Psychedelic Therapist, and in making these videos I used to suffer chronic anxiety because I used to worry about the amount of likes I was getting, or was there anything wrong with my content and all this. And this caused me shocking anxiety, and I used to take speed as a coping mechanism for this. And this did have contraindications. It caused me to arthritis and onset dementia, because speed burns the myelin sheath off the axon of the brain cell. And as I say, it did. When you take these things to excess, it did caused me to, as I said, to have several contraindications. But as I say, I did address all these issues by studying these different disciplines. And I addressed them, and that's why I don't have any underlying issues. I actually enjoy drink, and I drink because, as I said to her, it's conducive to philosophy. I said, when I drink, I said, it's conducive to philosophy. The universe gets to speak easy. I said, because I'm articulate enough and knowledgeable enough that the universe gets to say whatever it wants to say to whoever needs to hear these things. This is correlation and synchronicity, but I won't go too deep into this because people wouldn't understand. But I said to her, but it's conducive to philosophy. And at this point, it's then that I turned to we. And I said, well, we don't understand you. We don't understand you, which gives us our best to understand you when you're sober, never mind when you're drinking. But I said, oh, that's a very valid point. That's a very valid point. I'll have to think about this. And I did think about this. In the last 3 years, I've drank a lot of drink, and I've talked a lot of philosophy, and a lot of people I found have enjoyed these conversations and found them quite interesting. It's a lot better than people just sitting there, where are you going next? Which is what modern society has been reduced to, speaking just about the lowest common denominators: football, tits and ass, and the weather. These are the lowest common denominators. And that's what a lot of the conversation has been reduced to in modern society, because of drink being demonized and what is now deemed to be and not be socially acceptable. But so I said to her, that I did say, yes, I will think about this. As I say, I became we, but this is the minority speaking for the majority, and this again is what happens in modern society. So I said to her then, would you not just tell me to fuck off? And she said, I don't want to tell you to fuck off. And I thought about this, and I said, yeah, okay. And I thought about this, and I said, and if they don't want to tell me to fuck off, maybe they should think about changing themselves rather than trying to change me. Maybe they could be a little bit more tolerant, or else better still, have a drink. But as I say, they could learn to be more tolerant, change themselves rather than trying to change me. Maybe they could seek to understand and say that it's not the things that disturb us, it's our opinion about the things. And yeah. And then she said to me, I said this is Irish culture, and she said, yeah, but it's not our culture, and we all have to live together. And I have taken this on board as well, and I have said to myself, yes, is there a need for change? And I can appreciate that change is the only constant, and if you don't embrace change, and better still determine the nature of change, then you end up like the Indians. You just get steamrolled. Having change imposed upon you rather than determine the nature of change can be very, very frustrating. And yes, it can be very frustrating. So I've decided that the best thing to do is I will drink less, and so I have decided to take more steroids, because I've taken a look around my environment and I said, well, maybe what I need to do, I have enough shite talk now, and it's time to do something else. So I've decided I'm going to train harder, eat better, because what's necessary now, I think, is in order to determine the nature of change, better physical condition and increase my libido. Yes, better physical condition and increase my libido. So that's what I'm going to focus on now. So I'm going to drink a little less, take a few more steroids, and maybe like if I go out for a night out, speed and weed are more conducive to bodybuilding. They're more suitable drugs for bodybuilding. But I don't advise you take the two together, because this crashes the central nervous system. I have this experience. This is how I ended up with arthritis in my hands and onset dementia from taking too much speed. So the thing to do is to find balance. A little bit of everything and not too much of anything. A less drink, a little speed, a little weed, a little drink. Maybe now we're in the Christmas season now, so it's no longer socially acceptable to be drunk. And it's also getting quite dangerous to be drunk in modern society. So basically, in the season now, we're coming into Christmas parties, maybe what people ought to do, if they're going to be drinking a little bit more than usual, get yourself a few lines of good cocaine, so that you're not sloppy and you will be able to maintain your composure and be more socially acceptable. So really, I think the solution to the problem is to stand back from my life and find balance, as I say, a little bit of everything and not too much of anything. Yes. Yeah. Yes, that's the way forward. That's my intervention. That's all I have to say. Good luck.